Hello everyone, and welcome to this new video series on the Korean War. I'm your host, Ron May, author, historian, and speaker on war history and the stories of those who served. This is episode 2 on the Korean War. While much of the conflict was fought on the ground of Korea, there were significant contributions to the war effort from both on the sea and in the air, where Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force units came into play. In the photo above, an F-4U-4B Navy Corsair flies over ships near Incheon, Korea, in September 1950. This is a picture and symbol of the carrier task forces that throughout the conflict launched planes for aerial combat operations. The war started when Communist North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel into South Korea in June 1950. In just over 2 months, the Communist forces quickly advanced across most of the South Korean peninsula before finally getting stopped outside of the city of Pusan in southeastern southern Korea. Daring amphibious landing in the northwestern part of South Korea, near the city of Incheon, took place in the fall of 1950. See the red tip of the arrow crossing the South Korean Sea. Within weeks, the UN forces were pushing back the Communist forces and advancing rapidly into North Korea. Landing at Incheon was no small feat. Under the leadership of General MacArthur, the operation involved 75,000 troops and 261 naval vessels. Famous photo of a Marine officer coming off his amphibious vessel and leading his Marines over a seawall forward into battle. His name was Baldomero Lopez of Tampa, Florida. A Naval Academy graduate and former World War II veteran, the 25-year-old first lieutenant was serving as a platoon commander in A Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines of the 1st Marine Division. On September 15, 1950, he took part in the amphibious invasion of Incheon. Moments after clearing the seawall, he was struck by enemy fire in the chest and shoulder, causing him to drop an active hand grenade he was about to throw into a North Korean bunker. Although seriously wounded, Lieutenant Lopez crawled toward his now active grenade and, unable to throw it because of his injuries, pulled it under his body to shield others from the blast. He was killed in the resulting explosion. Lopez was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. The Secretary of the Navy presented the medal to Lopez's parents during a ceremony in Washington, D.C. a year later. Lopez was one of 5 Hispanic Marines to be awarded the Medal of Honor during the Korean conflict. The action wasn't just on the sea or from the ground. During the Korean War, the United States Air Force used several aircraft for the aerial combat support of operations. One of them was the B-29 Super Fortress shown on the top left. These bombers were primarily used for strategic bombing and were stationed in the Far East, including Yokota Air Force Base and Kadena Air Force Base. The F-86 Sabre, shown on the lower right, was a jet designed to counter the Soviet MiG-15s and was effective in air combat. The U.S. military employed these aircraft for various roles, including air superiority, strategic bombing, and close air support, contributing significantly to the war effort. One of the other fighters in the Korean conflict was the Navy's Grumman F-9F Panther. One of those F-9F Panther fighters was flown by Marine pilot Ted Williams of Boston Red Sox baseball fame. Williams began his journey as a combat pilot during the early years of World War II, when he took his primary flight training at the Bunker Hill Naval Air Station in north-central Indiana. At left, along with fellow ballplayer Johnny Pesky in the middle, volunteered for service in the Navy and arrived at the Naval Air Station Bunker Hill in September 1943 for 12 weeks of flight training. The duo had earned number 1 and number 2 hitting records in 1942 in the American League. Both Williams and Pesky was the flight instructor Joseph Edward Durnin Sr., a Pennsylvania native who came to Indiana to serve at the Naval Air Station Bunker Hill. He's shown in the photo of the training plane. Williams and Pesky were 2 of Durnin's first cadets to instruct. "He was the best flyer I ever met," Durnin said of Williams in a conversation with his children years later. "Great hand and eye coordination." World War II service, Williams went on to serve as a flight instructor, while Pesky was stationed at the naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, for the remainder of the war. In the end of the war, both Williams and Pesky returned to baseball and the Red Sox. Williams, the batter in this photo at right, and Pesky played in the 1946 World Series, which they lost to the St. Louis Cardinals. 6 years later, on January 9, 1952, Williams was called from a list of inactive reserves to serve in the Korean War. He had not flown a plane for 7 years, but passed his physical and was recalled to active duty on May 2, 1952, as a Marine Corps captain and pilot on an F-9F Panther jet. February 16, 1953, Williams, at the left, was flying as the wingman for another pilot by the name of John Glenn, shown on the right, who became the first American astronaut to orbit the Earth. They were both part of a 35-plane raid against a tank and infantry training school just south of Pyongyang, North Korea, shown in the red star on the map at right. After dove on the target, Williams's plane was hit by anti-aircraft fire. A piece of flak knocked out his hydraulics and electrical systems, causing Williams to have to limp his plane back to the airbase, where he made an emergency belly landing. For his actions that day, he was awarded the Air Medal. Williams flew a total of 39 combat missions in Korea, earning the Air Medal with 2 gold stars representing both second and third awards, before finally being withdrawn from flight status in June 1953, just before the end of the war. Williams returned to playing baseball with the Red Sox. Williams' friendship with his former flight instructor Joe Durnin lasted for the rest of Durnin's life. Williams often purchased tickets for Joe Durnin, shown on the right, to attend games when the Red Sox played at Yankee Stadium, near where Durnin lived in southeast Pennsylvania. Williams retired from baseball in 1960. 42 years later, after suffering a series of strokes and congestive heart failure, he died of cardiac arrest at the age of 83 on July 5, 2002. Another workhorse fighter aircraft for the Navy was the AD-4 Sky Raiders that flew off aircraft carriers and became the backbone of carrier operations during the Korean conflict. You can see 2 Sky Raiders at the top right corner of the photograph, dropping their ordnance on target in Korea. Charlie Marvin Fonda of Martinsville, Indiana, worked on the AD-4 Sky Raiders in the early 1950s during the Korean War. Fonda was born in 1933 in Paducah, Kentucky. He enlisted in the Navy in October 1950, knowing that the draft was in effect. In his basic training at Great Lakes Naval Training Center in Chicago, Fonda attended advanced schools for 22 weeks to learn his trade as an aviation machinist's mate, that is, an engine aircraft mechanic for the AD-4 Sky Raiders. Following his training, he reported for his assignment with Carrier Airborne Squadron VC-12 on board the USS Midway CV-41, which was home-ported in Norfolk, Virginia. Midway, named after the famous Battle of Midway, which had occurred earlier in World War II, was commissioned in September 1945 and became one of the 3 largest carriers to serve in the post-World War II era. At 972 feet long and 121 feet across, she was big. So big, in fact, that until 1955, she was the largest ship in the world. That distinction also led to her being the first ship too large for passing through the Panama Canal. Fondah's military service, the Midway carried a squadron of the AD-4 Sky Raiders, the propeller-driven attack aircraft that became the most widely used carrier-borne plane during the Korean War. They were also used for radar detection and often provided cover for the carrier group while at sea. Flying on and off carriers was impressive and also very dangerous work. Fondah witnessed some great takeoffs and landings of the aircraft, but he also saw some pilot fatalities while attempting to take off or land, as well as some mid-air collisions that occurred. Asian Fondah got some flight time in the planes that he serviced. One variation of the Sky Raider had 3 seats. Fondah was able to sit in one of the extra seats on a flight over New Jersey when, suddenly, the engine stalled. The pilot instructed the other 2 men to get ready to eject with their parachutes. It got awfully quiet, remembered Fondah. But just before it became necessary to eject, the pilot was able to restart the plane and recover the aircraft. Fondah reached the rank of a third-class petty officer before getting his discharge from the Navy in July 1954 after 4 years of service. He returned home to Paducah, Kentucky, and to his wife Patsy, whom he had met after high school and married earlier in his naval career. The couple raised 2 sons. Fondah settled into a career with refrigeration services for 30 years, 15 of them as owner of the business. Stroke, Fondah moved in 2012 to a nursing home in Martinsville, Indiana, to be closer to his son Keith. All around him on the walls of his room were the reminders of his full life, photos and mementos of his naval service, some of his wood carvings, as well as photos of his family. Charlie Fondah died in 2017 at the age of 83. Williams and Charlie Fondah never worked together or served on the same ship, but they were 2 men touched by the Hoosier heartland who made a difference in the naval operations off aircraft carriers during the Korean conflict. And for that, we say to both of them in honor of their memory of service, Bravo Zulu. Today, the USS Midway floats in the water off of San Diego as a museum ship. It's worth a visit to see her. If you enjoy veteran stories, check out my World War II trilogy, Our Service, Our Stories, Volumes 1, 2, and 3. The books are available for purchase on my website, ronaldpmay.com. To contact me for questions or to schedule me for a speaking engagement, email me at ron@ronaldpmay.com. Also, be sure to check out all my other videos on my YouTube channel at World War II History and Stories with Ron May. You will find a link to my videos on the YouTube tab from the homepage of my website. Please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Please share it with others who you think may be interested. In December 2026, I will resume the World War II series, which will be entitled World War II at 85, and it will be a look at the first 2 years of the war. It's time for Episode 3 of the Korean War and those who fought in it.